Hey, everybody. Happy Father's Day. It's Naomi Wolf. And I'm back with the Geneva Bible readings. Sorry for the delay. Some of you may know I went to England to be present at a really important royal court hearing for Mark Steyn, who was silenced and defamed and stripped of his program on GB News by Ofcom, which is this catastrophic quasi-governmental media regulator in Britain, the home of free speech, or the former home of free speech. And he was punished in all these ways for the crime of having had Neon to bring Britain and the rest of the world, where GB News reaches, very sober scientific data about the harms that our team, the War Room Daily Cloud Pfizer Documents research team, found in the Pfizer documents. And so for that accurate and important and clearly a matter of public interest presentation, Steyn has gone through all of this hellish punishment, and he also came to Britain and was in a courtroom for 8 hours, and I was there as well. But Steyn had come against medical advice. So he's a true hero for free speech. And if those of you watching this, if there are some of you watching the UK, please do read his description of being in the courtroom. It's on Mark Steyn Online. And please read my statement to the court, which is on my Substack Outspoken and on Daily Cloud. It's a very, very important case for free speech in Britain. And it was very sad for me to see how quickly Loki, who wants to always be part of the action, how quickly a great nation can crumble when there is no more freedom of speech. All right, so moving to something that might help us. I'm having lots of people, no sound, no video. Can you guys hear me? Maybe someone is having a little bit of trouble with their settings, but please let me know if you can hear me and see me, and I'll jump right in. And also happy Father's Day, as I mentioned, to all the fathers, all the stepfathers, all the grandfathers. We really need the good guys, the good men, and father figures to step up, continue to step up as they do every day. It's so important. All right. Yes, Loki, I love you very much. So you remember that Exodus 22 and 23 were, I'm not going to say boring, because it's a sacred text and I don't want to be blasphemous, but they were technical. You remember they were about how people should live together in peace, especially how a nomadic community should live together in peace, people who make a living with sheep and cattle and goats. And so there was a lot about, if that guy's goat strays into your property, or if you inadvertently kill his goat, what should you do about it? So again, a little bit technical, but these are important passages as well, if not as dramatic as what we're getting into now, because they give us such a flavor of, this very early human community in which people were really just figuring out a moral compass. They'd really been living in a state of pretty ceaseless brutality toward one another. The dominator, the dominated, the chattel, the owner of the chattel, and chattel could include humans, slaves, women, children, as well as animals. And this is really, you can feel the kind of creakiness and effort that goes into God kind of help. It's like training wheels, right? God really kind of trying to help these very barbaric people think about, what does it mean to live in a moral community? What does justice mean? What are you accountable for? Don't bear false witness. If you rape or seduce an unmarried woman, you can't just abandon her, which would mean at that time a death sentence or a great deal of poverty and misery. You have to marry her. You have to pay her dad. It doesn't seem like a great way to treat ladies in our time, but it was a huge advance from just raping women and kind of leaving them to fend for themselves and go hungry, essentially at the margins of the community. But here we get into an amazing couple of chapters. I mean, I can't even believe it. And when I read this again, I just think, why are we given so much not the real thing in religion? I mean, I was raised conservative Jewish, but I've been to a lot of churches. I've been to mosques. I think they really do get the Quran in mosques, and Orthodox Jews really do hear and read the sacred text, the Torah. But a lot of other denominations, conservative Jews, Reform Jews, a bunch of different Christian denominations, in my experience, really don't read the Old Testament or the New Testament in church or synagogue. Really interesting, because what we get, or what I'll speak for myself, what I got is stories about this, what we're about to read, Moses going up for 40 days and 40 nights, but the building of the ark, almost as a kind of Disney movie, but not in any way was it communicated to me in my whole education in Sunday school and Hebrew school, in shul, that God is literally creating a technology to live with people in these chapters. He's literally almost building a radio or a receiver, and it's described exactly that way, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But he's literally saying to Moses, okay, I'm going to live with you. I'm God, you're human beings. I'm going to live among you. He's not saying I'm going to be up in the sky. I'm going to be up in the heavens. I'm going to be in the firmament. He's literally saying, I want to hang out with you all. I want to live among you. Do you get taught that God wants to live with human beings, with them, among them? I mean, I get that Christians believe that Jesus, as a manifestation of God in many denominations, lived with human beings, among human beings. But I was never taught right here in the Torah that God is spelling out to Moses, look, I want to be with you all. I want to be a member of your family. But I'm God, so I can't just, walk among you because you'll fall over and be blinded or die or whatever, because he's of a different, beingness, but there are also commonalities, as we've seen. We're definitely his children, but we're still different, right? There's some differences. So we can't handle what God can handle, right? Because God is God. So God is literally in these two passages, and I will read them, don't worry. I just really want to call your attention because it is mind-blowing. He's literally saying, build a transponder, I just keep thinking radio, he's telling people how to build a device, a technology that will allow him to talk to humans and live with humans. That's what the Ark of the Covenant is. I was literally never told that when all the reading I've done, all the Hebrew school I went to, I was taught that it was, sacred, and God somehow, it was very holy, and God somehow hung out there. But the technical directions of, okay, you guys have to build this thing so I can talk to you all the time, that was not communicated to us. All right. This is the 1560 Geneva Bible. The people promised to obey God. And this is like a sub-headline that this text has. Moses writes the civil laws. Moses returns into the mountain. Aaron and Hur have the charge of the people. Moses was 40 days and 40 nights in the mountain. And now we begin the actual reading. Now he had said unto Moses, come up to the Lord, and he is Yeshua, God. Now he had said unto Moses, come up to the Lord, thou and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and ye shall worship afar off. And Moses himself alone shall come near to the Lord, but they shall not come near, neither shall the people go up to him. Afterwards Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the laws, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the things which the Lord has said we will do. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord and rose up early and set up an altar under the mountain, and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings of beeves and sacrificed peace offerings unto the Lord. I think beeves are a kind of cattle, but I need to check, I confess. Then Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. After he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people, who said, all that the Lord has said we will do, and be obedient. And notice this is the second time in this chapter that the people are saying affirmatively, not coerced, not forced, but out of their own free will, we will do it. We're going to do what God tells us to do. Then Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold the blood of the covenant, which the Lord has made with you concerning all these things. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel. They saw God. These guys saw God. I mean, are you told this, that 70 people witnessed God at Sinai? I was not told that. And they saw the God of Israel. There he was. And under his feet, I'm sorry, I shouldn't divert and paraphrase. Let me just read it as it is. And they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet was, as it were, a work of sapphire stone, and as the very heaven when it is clear. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel, he laid not his hand. Also they saw God and did eat and drink. These elders, honey, don't do that. These elders of Israel are having a picnic with God, or a feast with God on Mount Sinai. They're hanging out with him. They're eating and drinking with God and witnessing him. And the Lord said unto Moses, come up to me in the mountain and be there, and I will give you tables of stone, and the law and the commandment which I have written for you to teach them. Then Moses rose up, and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mountain of God, and said unto the elders, tarry us here, wait for us here, until we come again unto you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whosoever has any matters, let him come to them. Meaning he was leaving his brother and this priest named Hur in his stead, in his position, while he was hanging out with God more intimately than even these 70 people on the mountain eating and drinking with God, right? And he was delegating the adjudication of any of the people's difficulties to these priests. Then Moses went up to the mount, and the cloud covered the mountain. And the glory of the Lord descended upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like consuming fire on the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses entered into the midst of the cloud and went up to the mountain, and Moses was in the mount for 40 days and 40 nights. And then we'll just read Exodus 25. And the subheadline here is the voluntary gifts for the making of the tabernacle, the form, meaning the shape or structure of the ark, the mercy seat, the table, the candlestick, all must be done according to the pattern. Now I'm beginning the reading. Then the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel that they receive an offering for me. Of every man whose heart gives it freely, ye shall take the offering for me. And this is the offering which you shall take of them: gold and silver and brass and blue silk and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair and rams' skins colored red, and the skins of badgers, and the wood shittim, oil for the light, spices for anointing oil, and for the perfumes of sweet savor. Onyx stones and stones to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate. Also, they shall make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. According to all that I show you, even so, just like this, shall you make the form of the tabernacle and the fashion of all the instruments thereof. And a tabernacle is kind of a hard word to translate. It's like a holy structure. It can be big, it can be smaller, but I would say a good translation is like a mobile temple. They shall make also an ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half long, and a cubit and a half broad, and a cubit and a half high. And you shall overlay it with pure gold. Within and without shall you overlay it, and you shall make upon it a crown of gold round about. So specific. And you shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them in the 4 corners thereof. That is, 2 rings shall be on the one side of it, and 2 rings on the other side thereof. And you shall make bars of shittim wood, and cover them with gold. Then you shall put the bars in the rings by the sides of the ark, to bear the ark, to carry the ark with them. In other words, these rods went alongside this square or rectangular ark structure, so that people could carry it with the children of Israel. It wasn't on wheels, it wasn't on a chariot. Human beings were to carry it. The bars shall be in the rings of the ark, so they shall not be taken away from it. So you shall put in the ark the testimony which I shall give you. So really important, guys, from the beginning, this is a time when the Egyptians were worshiping cats, and, Baal was sacrificing children with fire, and other tribes were worshiping stone idols, or people were worshiping the sun and the moon. This is, for the first time, as far as we know, God is saying, I'm going to put a moral text in the place that is the holiest place, where all these other tribes and believers are putting inanimate objects, right? So you've got to wrap your brain around that. I mean, what an advance in the human story that is, that people begin to essentially worship morality and ethics and justice instead of worshiping cats and the sun and clay figures. So you shall put in the ark the testimony which I will give you. Also, you shall make a mercy seat of pure gold, 2 cubits and a half long, and a cubit and a half broad. And you shall make 2 cherubims, and cherubims are baby angels, basically, of gold, of work beaten out with a hammer. Shall you make them at the 2 ends of the mercy seat? And the one cherub shall you make at the one end, and the other cherub at the other end. Of the matter of the mercy seat shall you make the cherubims on the 2 ends thereof. And the cherubims shall stretch their wings on high, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and their faces one to another. They're facing each other. To the mercy seatward shall the faces of the cherubims be. And you shall put the mercy seat above upon the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony which I will give you. Again, the law, the commandments go into this beautiful golden structure, this structure covered with gold. And there I will declare myself unto you, and from above the mercy seat, between the 2 cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony, I will tell you all things which I will give you in commandment unto the children of Israel. You shall also make a table of shittim wood of 2 cubits long, and 1 cubit broad, and a cubit and a half high. And you shall cover it with pure gold, and make thereto a crown of gold round about. I mean, God has very detailed taste, right? Don't you get a sense of a real personality saying, I really want it to look like this, and please add a crown of gold, and the angels, the baby angels, have to be facing each other. I mean, God has really thought this through. You know, it's like God has a personality. God has preferences. It's fantastic, aesthetic preferences. You shall also make unto it a border of 4 fingers, that is 4 fingers depth, like that, round about. And you shall make a golden crown round about the border thereof. After you shall make for it 4 rings of gold, and shall put the rings in the 4 corners that are in the 4 feet thereof. Over against the border shall the rings be for places for bars to bear the table. And you shall make the bars of shittim wood, and shall overlay them with gold, that the table may be borne with them. So you've got to imagine the instructions are for the children of Israel to carry this beautiful golden ark on their shoulders, basically 4 bearers, I'm assuming, with these rods going through these golden rings, and also a table similarly carried on rings through rods. You shall make also dishes for it, and incense cups for it, and coverings for it, and goblets wherewith it shall be covered, even of fine gold shall you make them. And you shall set upon the table showbread before me continually. Also, you shall make a candlestick of pure gold, of work beaten out with the hammer shall the candlestick be made. His shaft and his branches, his bowls, his knobs, and his flowers shall be of the same. And when this is candlestick, you really need to imagine a menorah. That's the shape. Even later, when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, they put in their kind of victory arches engraved friezes, images of these menorahs, these candlesticks. And of course, they weren't wax candles, they were oil. So that's what this means by bowls, right? 6 branches also shall come out of the sides of it, 3 branches of the candlestick out of the one side of it, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side of it. 3 bowls like unto almonds, 1 knob and 1 flower in 1 branch, and 3 bowls like almonds in the other branch, 1 knob and 1 flower. So throughout the 6 branches that come out of the candlestick. And in the shaft of the candlestick shall be 4 bowls like unto almonds, his knobs and his flowers. And there shall be a knob under 2 branches made thereof, and a knob under 2 branches made thereof, and a knob under 2 branches made thereof, according to the 6 branches coming out of the candlestick. You can really picture this. You can really get a sense of exactly what it looks like. Their knobs and their branches shall be thereof. All this shall be 1 beaten work of pure gold, and you shall make the 7 lamps thereof, and the lamps thereof shall you put thereon to give light toward that is before it. Also the snuffers and snuff dishes thereof shall be of pure gold. Of a talent of fine gold shall you make it with all these instruments, and a talent is a measurement of gold. Look therefore that you make them after their fashion that was showed you in the mountain. So that is the Geneva Bible, and I guess, I mean, you've kind of heard, you know, what's amazing. I mean, I think it's amazing that Yahweh is pretty much saying, you know, get my room ready, right? And this is what I'd like it to look like, and this is the art I'd like you to put on the walls, and you know, make sure that, you know, there's a water glass by the side of the bed. I mean, really, he's explaining where he would like to live, and he's saying, please do it exactly thus. Now we're going to, and the thing I really can't, you know, get over is this image of these 70 elders of the children of Israel eating and drinking in the presence of God. You know, it's so like, come on up, you know, sit down. Let's have a celebration of our relationship. it's just, again, I know you may be tired of hearing me say this, but it just is revealed over and over and over with these readings that the personality of God in the original and in the faithfully translated Geneva Bible is so friendly and so intimate, and wants to be with us, right? It's not just, oh, what do we have to do to be with him? And it's so scary and we have to jump through all these hoops. He literally, every passage so far, every chapter that you've read, is trying to figure out how to be with us, like how to come down and hang out with us and live with us and talk to us and share his sensibility with us, meaning his testimony, the Geneva Bible puts it, so that, meaning his moral wavelength, so that we can communicate with him and actually have a relationship with him. Let's go now. We've got lots of people, which is so wonderful. I know I too have felt in the last week or so since I last did a reading, the events of the world are so demonic right now. I mean, I don't have to go into detail, but horrible, horrible things are happening. Liberties are being suspended. Children are being injured or abducted. Vast institutions are being revealed to have colluded with murder and sterilization. There's war. People are beating the drums of war. There's a draft, right, that just got passed, or a motion toward a draft. It's so horrific everywhere. And I just feel like, I've missed this. I just feel like holding on to this helps somehow. I don't yet know exactly how, but I feel like it strengthens. I'm not going to say us. I'm going to say me, because I don't proselytize, but I believe there is information in these books about how we can get through this. I really do. And honestly, this is literally the technology. I mean, we're in one of the passages right now in the Hebrew Bible and in the Geneva Bible, in which, I keep looking for, well, what is the technology? What do we need to do to channel spiritual power, to defend our families, our loved ones, our children, our nature, our planet, our farmland, our water, our bodies, and our liberties? And this is really, of all everything we've read up until now, this is the most the passage most typical or characteristic of God literally giving humans a technology to prevail, right, and to be with him. All right, so let me go to Shemot in the Chabad.org in the Hebrew. And something that's quite interesting is that this chapter is chapter 24 in the Geneva Bible. It's chapter 24 in the Hebrew Bible. It's not chapter, oh yeah, it is chapter 24 in the Revised Standard Version. All right, my mistake. But I do want to read to you about the mercy seat, because it doesn't sound that way in Hebrew. I do want to read you in the Hebrew how God invites Moses to come up to the mountain. And so he says, Vayomer Adonai, and God said, El Moshe, toward Moshe, Ale Elai. And this is one of those, poetic musical echoes. Ale Elai. Isn't that beautiful? Ale means come up. It's imperative. Come up, Elai, toward me. And it's so gentle, like a father or a mother says to a child, Bo Elai, come to me. So I just want you to hear that in the gentleness of the Hebrew. Ale Elai, Hahara, toward the mountain. Veyesham, and be there. Ve'etna lecha, and I will give to you et luchot ha'even, the tablets. Luach, to this day, when a teacher writes on a blackboard, she's writing or he's writing on the luach. So it's literally the almost blackboards or tables, right? Et luchot ha'even, the tables made of stone, the HaTorah, and the Torah, right, which is translated as law. That's right. But he's really saying, I'll give you the Torah. Veha mitzvah, and it's actually singular, and the commandment. He means, I'm sure, the commandments, but the whole kind of range of commandments that we receive. Asher katavti lehoratem, that I have written. And it's literally that I've written, almost like he wrote a letter, or he wrote a journal, that I've written to instruct them. And lehoratem is the same root as more or mora, I believe, which means a teacher. So it's translated as to instruct them, but it's really to teach them or to inform them. And I just wanted you to hear the friendliness and the intimacy of that. And so let's go next to what it was like to be on the mountain. And so God is telling them what he wants the offerings to look like: gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson wool, linen and goat hair, ram skins dyed red, tachash skins, and acacia wood. That's how shittim is translated into English. Oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil and for the incense. And so listen to this. And they shall make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell in their midst. So remember, even in the Geneva Bible, it was tabernacle. And here it's sanctuary. All right, and in Hebrew, it's ve'asuli, and they will make for me mikdash. Kodesh is holy, so it's literally a holy place. Veshachanti betocham. Oh my gosh, I don't even believe this language. Veshachanti betocham. Shachen is a neighbor. Shachanti is like, I will relax, I will hang out, I will be a neighbor, I will be neighborly. Betocham literally means among them, or within them almost, right? It's that intimate. I will dwell in their midst. It's how it's translated, but it's even more into that. It's like, I will be neighborly within them. Can you believe it? That's how close it is. And he's saying, according to all I show you, that you shall do. So the pattern of the Mishkan. So Mishkan is translated mercy seat. And here it says, that everything which I show, otcha, to you, et tavnit hamishkan, the pattern. Tavnit is the same root as to build. Hamishkan. So Mishkan means like location. I wonder if it's related. I think it's related to the root for neighbor. Mishkan is the location, the place. Ve'et tavnit kol kelav, and thus you shall build all its. Kelav is like tools. It's translated as vessels, but it's like the things that go there. Ve'ken ta'asu, and thus you shall do. And so they made it the ark of acacia wood. And it's so interesting. The word in Hebrew for ark is aron, which is literally a cabinet or a closet. To this day, you say, I'm putting the coat in the aron, right? So they're building a cabinet for God, right? And so then he describes how to overlay it with pure gold and put a golden crown on it and 4 golden rings. It's pretty much the same, and the poles on the rings. And you shall place into the ark the testimony which I will give you. The natata el ha'aron et ha'edut asher eten alecha, and you will give to the closet or the cabinet the edut. Yeah, it is testimony. It's almost witness, right? That I will give to you. And you shall make an ark cover of pure gold. And he talks about the golden cherubim and how they look at each other and they have their wings spread upwards. So that's all accurate. And you shall place the ark cover on the ark from above, and into the ark you shall place the testimony which I will give you. All right, so this is 20. This is so important. This is 25, and it's lines 21 to 22, and it's translated completely differently in the Revised Standard Version, even in the Geneva Bible, than in the Hebrew. And in the Hebrew, it isn't a mercy seat. There's no mercy seat, right? In the Hebrew, God is literally saying, I'm going to talk to you through this thing. And he didn't really say that in the Geneva Bible, and he doesn't say it in the Revised Standard Version as I read it. So here we are. And you shall place the ark cover on the ark from above. And again, that's translated mercy seat, which is odd, right? That natata et ha-kaporet al Aaron, and you will put the kaporet ark cover, right? On the cabinet, milamala, above it, on the top of it, the el haron titen, and toward the cabinet you will give et ha-edut, the witness, the testimony, asher eten elecha, that I will give you. Now listen to this. V'no'adeti, and I will arrange lecha sham, with you there, v'dibarti itcha, and I will talk to you, me'el hakaporet, from above the ark cover. So he's literally saying, if you set it up like this, I can talk to you using this device. Mivein shnei hakruvim, from between the two cherubs, asher al Aaron, that are on the cabinet, ha'edut et kol asher atzava, the witness testimony, and everything that I will command you toward the children of Israel. Isn't that different? I mean, to me, it's almost like he's saying, if you build this thing, it will be like a receiver, and I will speak to you from atop the ark cover, from between the two cherubim. I will meet you there through this technology. And then he goes on to describe the table and the rings and the poles and the table showbread before him at all times. And the menorah is how it's translated here, of pure gold, hammered work. And then it describes the menorah. And then he ends by saying, ur'eh, and see, ve'aseh, and do, betav netam, in their building, according to their pattern, asher ata mar'eh bahar, according to that which I showed you on the mountain. All right. So I don't know if you guys feel how different that is. But I think it's very different. I mean, there is no mercy seat. And I don't want to get into a kind of Judaism versus Christianity thing, but mercy seat sounds like we always need to beg for mercy from God because he's so possibly tyrannical. And this is not what this God is describing at all. He's describing a covering on the ark between these two cherubim, where it almost sounds like, because of the construction of this thing, he's able to talk to his priest directly. And there's no sense of, you guys had really better be careful and beg for mercy because things are so bad and God can wipe you out. It's literally like, I'm going to call you at 6. You're in a foreign country. This is how you pick up the phone and press a button and you can hear my voice. It's like literally like that. All right, so let's just look at Revised Standard Version, and we won't read through all of it at all because mostly it's the same, but I do want to look at that line 21 and see how it's translated. So, make 2 cherubim of gold, of hammered work shall you make them on the 2 ends of the mercy seat. Again, it's the mercy seat. Make 1 cherub on the one end and 1 cherub on the other end. Of one piece with the mercy seat shall you make the cherubim on its two ends. The cherubim shall spread out their wings above, overshadowing the mercy seat with their wings. Their faces to one to another toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubim be. And you shall, this is 21, and you shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I shall give you. There I will meet with you, and listen to this, there I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you of all that I will give you in commandment for the children of Israel. I mean, it's kind of the same, but to me, it's also quite different, because in the original Hebrew, this translation, the Revised Standard Version, almost sounds like the mercy seat is a barrier between God's presence and humans. And in the Hebrew, the mercy seat, well, there is no mercy seat, but the kaporet, if I'm translating that correctly, the ark, the covering of the ark is a way for God to talk to people, and like a mechanism for God to talk to people. And God literally said, and I don't get this sense in the Revised Standard Version translation at all, God literally said to Moses, okay, I'll meet you there. Like, we'll have meetings there. Like it's almost like, okay, you know that hotel in Midtown, we can have a meeting there. That's what God is constructing in the Hebrew. And there's also a little bit of a change in the translation when God says in the Revised Standard Version, there I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you of all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel. I mean, in Hebrew, he talks about, I will give you the Torah and the commandments, and they've kind of gotten rid of the Torah. I'm sorry, but they did. Like, it's not cool. You should not get rid of the Torah if it's in the original. I'm sorry, no criticism, no disrespect, but I do believe you should be faithful to what the text really says. And it's not just commandments, right? It's the Torah and the commandments. And these are actually two different things. In Hebrew, the Torah is the 5 books of Moses, this story essentially, and the commandments are within that, and they also are going to be in commentary later around these 5 books of Moses. But in Judaism, it's the Torah, which is the story, right, of humans' relationship to God, and also the analysis of how to live out the commandments in daily life. And it starts with this handful of commandments from Mount Sinai. There's some debate about whether it's 10 or 12, depending on sort of how the wording is, how the phrases are. And you remember we read those, but it's also, now there are 613 because there's so much exegesis and commentary about how you put that into practice, right? Like in the original, let's say 10, God says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. In the later exegesis by rabbis and commentators, there are going to be a bunch of micro instructions almost about how to keep it holy, right? What to do on the Sabbath, what you can do, what you can't do, what you can, heat up without turning on a flame. You can be somewhere where it's okay, Loki. You can be somewhere where the light's already on, then don't turn the light on and don't start a new light, right? So it's odd and striking that the Revised Standard Version puts a mercy seat where there really isn't one, and suggests this like desperate pleading, almost for one's life, as the Holy of Holies, the most sacred location where God is, right, as described so far in the Hebrew Bible. And there's no mercy seat in the Hebrew. And the other thing that's odd is that they get rid of the Torah. I'm sorry. They get rid of the law, but keep the commandments. That's not how it reads. All right. So that is it for my reading of these two incredible passages, these incredible chapters. I just can't, it's like amazing. Doesn't it make you feel different? Like God isn't going to come down in the mercy seat and, be separated from us through a layer of priests. God is literally trying to set up a phone call, so that he can talk to us. Certainly the rabbis, whatever, at this point, they're priests, are helping to communicate to us. But God is really trying to set it up to be present on earth, to be among us, with us, in the midst of us so closely. I want to hang out with you. I want to live with you. I want to be with you. I want to travel with you. I want to talk to you. It continues to be a gigantic love story in which, as I've said before, God loves us more than we love him. I mean, at least in the Hebrew Bible, God keeps kind of trying to find a way to be with us, trying to find a way to walk with us, trying to find a way to talk with us, to have us listen, to have us respond, to have us love back. And so far, consistently, he loves us more than these guys anyway, have been able to love him. They're trying, but they're human and they're learning and they're flawed. So it's very much still a love story with obstacles and barriers and misunderstandings and difficulties and disappointments. But the disappointments are on God's side, not really on the children of Israel. They're getting everything God promised. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the comments. Thank you so much for so many comments. Hello, hello, hello. Many happy Father's Day. TMB says, love the reading of God's holy word. I know, I feel better too. Don't you feel better? It's like, there's something very stabilizing about it and reassuring. Hello from Germany. Hello to you. Everyone can see and hear. Hello from Toronto, Canada, says Angel. Hello to you. From Vancouver Island, says Hola Songor. Hello to you. Oh, hello, Heather King from the UK. Greetings. That's so nice. Margaret Menge says, Naomi, in every Catholic church everywhere in the world, every Sunday, we have one reading from the Old Testament, one from the Gospels, and one other from the New Testament, usually letters from St. Paul to the Apostles. That's fascinating and really interesting. And I mean, that's really notable. And people who come from that tradition can be very, very, committed to that tradition. And I think that what that says is that the actual text is very powerful, right? I mean, the Geneva Bible was banned. The Bible was banned. The Bible is banned in many countries around the world, probably for this reason, that it makes people unstoppable, But thank you, Margaret. That's really interesting. Dark Horse Rider says, the kingdom of heaven is within you, Geneva version. We will get to that. But I believe it. You know that I read the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew, and it's kind of going in that direction. I'm only a few chapters in, but the idea of God is among us, God is within us, the kingdom of the skies, which is literally what it is in the Hebrew Matthew, is it's not nearing, it's near. It's like here. It's like it's close to us. It's this sense of immediacy and intimacy. Yeah, I love it. Northwest AZ for Carrie says, if a pretty girl texts me saying she wants to hang out, I'll be thrilled and read the text multiple times. If God sends a text to humanity saying he wants to hang out, we treat it like a solicitation for car insurance. That is well said and really true. And, if I accomplish anything in these readings, and it's together, right? Because we're discovering this together, it's to discover that there, God keeps texting, I really want to hang out. And we do treat it like it's like spam. That is so well said. Let's see, a couple of trolls, more trolls, a lot of trolls. Gonna stick. Okay, Julie Strock says, excited to continue. Can't stay for the live, but wanted to hop on and say hi. Hi, Julie. I'll follow up later this week. And you can find these readings live on their own page now on Substack and also on Daily Clout. You can find them. But if you go to the Geneva Bible, or Dr. Naomi Wolf reads the Geneva Bible on substack.com, you can find all of these readings now because people were coming just for these readings. So we thought we should put them all in one place. Rick Thrippleton says, I admire how you are considering the people for whom this was written, who this was written for. This is so important. Thank you. I appreciate that. Question, does your version of the Geneva Bible contain the Apocrypha? I can't check just now because I was reading it digitally because I'm traveling, but I will go back to my physical text, or those of you who bought the physical Geneva Bible, please take a look. I believe, the Apocrypha, right? There are different definitions of that as I understand it. And I know it's got some books that we don't include anymore and others that are considered part of the Apocrypha. But I will get back to you. It's a really important question. Rick Thrippleton says the instructions that God was providing for the sanctuary and also the 10 commandments, often referred to the commandments, were all considered as commandments because of their slavehood mentality and their idol worshiping ways, when all along God was trying to instruct them on how to be reconciled to the great heart of love. That's also really beautifully put, Rick. I love it. I mean, I have to say I agree with you, and I don't think we should ever forget that God was trying to communicate with people about absolute liberty and, like vast, immeasurable love to people who had been in slavery for like 400 years and didn't remember freedom. And that's so critical to keep that in context. And Tom F. says, we must pray for protection through the blood of Christ daily and put on your armor of light. Well, a lot of people here will agree with you, and other people are from other religions and don't see Christ in exactly that way, though I'm sure value him. And I am not saying what to believe. But what I do want to note as a literary scholar is, or a scholar of literature, is the blood of Christ. Where does it come from? This, so much of the New Testament is referencing the Torah and recapitulating tropes and metaphors from the Old Testament in a brand new context by this carpenter in Judea under Roman occupation. And so when he talks about this is my blood, everybody understands that he's referencing like this moment because there's blood and the blood sacrifice referenced by Yahweh when Yahweh here is giving instruction to Moses about how to be close to him, how to worship him. Oh, interesting. And so someone's citing Hebrews 4:16, which is New Testament. Donald Wortham, let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So I don't want to start a religious fight, but this is such an interesting moment. And all of these are beautiful words, right? All of them, in my view, bring us closer to God. I personally don't think there's only one way. I know a lot of you may be upset at me for saying that, but I think God is smart enough to find anyone who's looking where that person is. But having said that, Christian discourse is different than Hebrew discourse from this time. And we just heard a description from the Hebrew about the throne of God and what it looks like, and people having a feast in the presence of God. And it doesn't talk about mercy, and it doesn't talk about grace. Those are beautiful concepts. They're not Jewish. Judaism didn't really exist then. They're not in the Hebrew Bible yet in this way. They are really interesting and lovely notions that come about Well, certainly Paul, is the main kind of elaborator of these ideas. Jesus doesn't talk about grace, as I recall. And I'm not saying they're not important, they're super important, but I think we do need to keep in mind how like humanity was learning and evolving, and the different moments in history these texts were created. And the New Testament was written thousands of years after the Hebrew Bible. And it was also, Paul, I will always remind you guys, no disrespect to Paul, was a Jew who was a Hellenized Jew, and he became a follower of Jesus. So he was very much influenced by Hellenic ideals, Greco-Roman ideals, and Stoicism, for instance, is very much part of his philosophy. But grace and mercy are Pauline ideas. Well, mercy, chesed, definitely appears in the Old Testament, but the idea of grace and salvation through Jesus comes later in the New Testament, and I don't think it's divisive to point that out. It's different, it's a different discourse. But thank you. I think what's beautiful, just to bring it back to like unity and dialogue, is to see how these religions layer on each other. And in my view, they're really the same religion ultimately, right? Or at least, well, as they said in the New Testament, a new branch on an existing tree, right? Maybe saying the same religion is not accurate, but the one grows out of the other. And it's the Old Testament, the first one that we're looking into now. All right. William, well, I hope you're not offended. Donald, I thought your contribution was very valuable. I just thought I should point that out. William Walters, Yeshua, aka Jesus of Nazareth, often referred to God as masculine because his audience at the time saw God as masculine. However, there actually are writings about Yeshua with his referring to God as having masculine and feminine aspects, along with the impersonal. So I don't know specifically about those, though I know that Dr. Elaine Pagels, who's a professor at Princeton and a very great scholar, wrote a really wonderful book called The Gnostic Gospels, in which there are, as I recall, more feminine-oriented, both disciples and, female disciples, and also feminine discourse about God. And again, I don't want to get, it's a really important point. I don't want to get reductive because I don't want anyone to freak out about labels, because none of this is literal, right? It's all a metaphor. The way when you say, my love is like a red, red rose, it's a metaphor. Your love isn't literally a red, red rose. Obviously, God isn't literally like a human male or a human female. At least that's my belief. But for sure, later on, there's something that gets developed, especially in kind of mystical Judaism, which came later, but it's the Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah is the feminine divine presence of God. And, you can make of that what you will. It doesn't mean God is a female, God is male. It means that God can show up in a bunch of different, vibes. And the nurturing, maternal is maybe as godlike as masculine. And then T for 2 says, isn't the Holy Ghost the feminine part of God? And this is all way ahead of my text here, so I can't answer that. You guys can debate it. It's a really interesting debate. Remember that in the Hebrew Matthew, the Holy Ghost is Ruach Kadosh, which can mean sacred spirit or even sacred wind. Again, what I do want you guys to remember, just as a matter of like scholarly integrity, is that a lot of the things that we are certain are part of both Christianity and Judaism came later. A lot of the things Jews think belong to Judaism actually belong to post-exilic rabbinical Judaism, after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. And a lot of concepts like the Trinity, right, were developed in the 3rd and 4th century, centuries after the historic Jesus walked on earth, and other things like the worship of Mary, or the idea of a divine Mother Mary, really came centuries after Yeshua walked on earth. So this is not to be critical of any belief. It's just that, religions evolve century after century, and new ideas get codified. They get codified in different ways by different people. Some things that the early church fathers believed, we don't believe anymore. Certainly some things that the children of Israel believed. We don't stone our daughters to death if they, fornicate before marriage. Things change, and I don't think that means that the essential sacredness of these ideas, is especially the moral messages, ever change. But history changes, and intellectual history changes as well, and that's true for religions too. Please don't be offended by my saying that, but I do feel like I have to say it as a matter of just my being accurate. All right. Amen. Okay, so we've got Ephesians 6:10, and let me by all means refer people to Ephesians 6:10 if they want to know more about the layering of this passage in Exodus with the Pauline letters to the disciples. Okay. Oh, this is lovely. Donald Wortham, who's saying a lot of interesting things here, says, "We don't beg, we just believe. We have his mercy through the atonement." And that's beautiful, and I'm not going to argue about it. I'm just going to say it's not in this text. Okay, I think that there are amazing things that came later based on this text, but I'm just noting it's not in the text. William Walters said, "Poor Joseph Smith, who founded the Mormon Church, did have an understanding of the fact that what we think of as God has masculine and feminine aspects, although his revelations contain distortions. I believe the Vatican has many writings, including about Yeshua the Christ. This would include the fact that Judas Iscariot was not an apostle, that there were 4 temptations of Jesus ben Yosef after Christ, that Christ..." Well, I can't assess any of what you're saying, so I'm going to just bracket that. And thank you. Tom F. says, "Believe and receive. It is finished. The veil of his torn flesh is our entrance." Again, different discourse. And I understand that is the Christian kind of elaboration of this foundation, but I'm sorry to keep saying it's not in this text. Okay. Wonderful to hear this explanation. Mercy seat is a poor translation. I do agree with you about that. Northwest Arizona for Carrie says, "Could be from the Septuagint. In any case, thanks, Doc, for allowing us into your devotional time. Always nice to get back to the original languages." I agree. 2 Women says, "Amen." From England. Hello from England. So William Walters, boy, this is getting very Christian, guys, and I'm not stopping it. It's a beautiful discussion. It's just, we're jumping ahead quite a lot. But William Walters said, "Christ knew that his church would be distorted and adulterated, and he knew full well that his appointed missionary, Saul of Tarsus, Paul, would at times allow false ego to enter into his teachings and admonitions. Modern day Protestants, quote, teach self-proclaimed Apostle Paul too much." Interesting. Paul actually was an adversary of the Apostle Peter. You could say they were not friends. That is interesting. And Robert Eisenman, who did a couple of books on Dead Sea Scrolls that I'm really interested in, that were withheld from the public for 35 years by the representatives of the church, the Catholic Church, makes the case that Pauline Hellenized Christians, which included many Greeks, right, non-Jews, created a schism, or were part of a schism, 2 factions after Jesus' death. And there was a group of Jewish followers of Yeshua who followed what Eisenman says, and what seems from the text to be Jesus's brother. And those texts are amazing to read, especially if you're Jewish, because they were like an Essene community. I mean, they were in the middle of the desert, hiding out from the Romans. And there's this figure called the righteous teacher. But it's like followers of what could be Yeshua, but from a completely Jewish messianic perspective. And I just want to say the first century Jewish messianism is different from what became Pauline Hellenized messianism. We can go into that at another time. It's very much preoccupying me, but in the first century, the Jews in Judea and the community in who hid the Dead Sea Scrolls near the Jordan in the desert, and a lot of people, right, were waiting for a political Messiah. It would be someone sent by God, but it would be someone sent by God like a descendant of David to liberate and redeem the children of Israel who were being held in horrible oppression by Rome. And so they were expecting someone anointed the way David was anointed. And that was translated into Greek as Christ, but it means anointed, right? Even in Greek, it means anointed. But the Jews were waiting for a political Messiah who was a redeemer politically, like Judas Maccabeus, who rose up and revolted against the Romans, and also a very nationalistic and very Torah-based Messiah, right? And of course, Paul absorbed a lot of very Greco-Roman ideas, which included, by the way, the man God, right? And I'm not saying Jesus was or wasn't a man God, right? I'll get into that later if I ever write an essay about this, but that is a very un-Jewish idea, right? We're not supposed to have gods who are men, for sure. And so I guess I'm just describing that in the first century, there were these two factions, right? And there were Jewish followers of Yeshua, but they were waiting for a completely different tradition of a Messiah, right? Which was political and Jewish and based on the Torah and kind of ethnocentric or nationalist almost, the Messiah for Israel. And Paul brilliantly wrote kind of a philosophy based on the figure of Jesus and the teachings of Jesus, presumably, but that opened the door to everybody, and especially pagans, Greeks and Romans in the rest of the world. And he said, you don't have to get circumcised. You don't have to keep kosher. Jesus took care of all of that for us. And that was kind of brilliant because it allowed Christianity to, go all over the world and welcome everybody, without making them convert to Judaism, right? Whereas the first century Jewish followers of Yeshua definitely interpreted what Yeshua said as teaching for Jews, based on the Torah. So I just wanted to put that in context. I'm not coming down on a side. I'm just saying we've forgotten a lot, about the roots of these two, what became two different religions started out as really one. All right, I'm going to quickly read just a few more. William Walters says something interesting. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church believe the Ark of the Covenant as being in Ethiopia now. Moreover, their Bible contains the Apocrypha and the Book of Enoch before Genesis. William Walters, I will tell you, you are right. I have looked at the Ethiopian Bible, and I've talked to someone who's doing deep research into this, a filmmaker actually, who's doing deep research into it, and they say the Ark of the Covenant is in Ethiopia, and they're not showing it to anyone, but it's rumored, people are rumored to have seen it. And why not? I mean, the Queen of Sheba went to visit King Solomon, and there's some legends that they had a relationship and had a child. And there is an argument that the traditions of some kind of Ethiopian communities are more directly descended from Solomon's time, than later communities that went all over the world after the diaspora and the destruction of the temple. Let's see. William Walters says, grace is often used as the experience of the Holy Ghost, one of Christ's big contributions to humanity. I don't doubt it. Let's see. Shay Richardson says, Holy Ghost is often referred to as wisdom in Old Testament, and the feminine is used to describe wisdom. Well, that is true. And in Greek, which is Sophia. So the Bible makes clear God contains both the masculine and feminine, quote, male and female created he them in God's image. Fascinating. Let's see. Mankind needs a kinsman redeemer since Adam sold us into bondage. Again, I am not arguing with this, but I just want to note these are not Jewish ideas. They came later. They're not the children of Israel ideas. This whole notion that, humanity was in bondage or in a state of existential sin, and then Jesus' blood, washed everyone clean and redeemed and saved them, is a Pauline idea and a theology of the later church fathers. It's not Jewish, obviously. And I guess I just want to share with you guys, I'm not making a case. Please take as given that I'm never making a case for one religion or another. But this relationship of this God to these people isn't that, right? God is not saying you've existentially sinned, someone needs to be sacrificed to wash you clean. That's not what he's saying here. It's a different conversation that comes later where those ideas emerge. Let's see. Roscoe Arias says, good to see you. Thank you. And Roscoe Arya also says, Rav Berg, founder of Kabbalah Center, says, Ark of Covenant is Zohar. You can eye roll. Kate just had to share that. Well, thank you. Just because things can get popularized doesn't mean there isn't really Kabbalah. There is. It goes back to, medieval Europe and even earlier to Sfat in Israel or Palestine at that time. And Kabbalah is mystical Judaism, which I can't explain to you. It's very like Gnostic in the sense of secret knowledge, but I mean, it's beautiful secret knowledge. It's not like weird conspiracy theory secret knowledge, but it's like they believe that the universe, it's very hard to describe, rests on principles of justice and mercy and compassion. And they believe that letters and words in Hebrew are sacred and have numerical values. And they believe they're really mystical, the way Blake was mystical in the sense that they believe that the world is broken, but that God comes through the klipot, or the fragments, and especially that it's our job to do good deeds, because when we do good deeds, we bring light into this broken world through the brokenness, basically. So it's quite beautiful. It's not what it's been popularized to be in Los Angeles, but that's really interesting. Roscoe, thank you for contributing that. Elizabeth says, have you read the book of Hebrews? I have. And Sean Rhodes says, Paul was very much Jewish. I will respectfully disagree with you about that. He was more Jewish than non-Jews, but he was less Jewish than non-Hellenized Jews. The Hellenization of Paul was very real. It's not a criticism. It's just that Jews of his time would have seen someone like him who was from an elite, highly educated, and with this Greco-Roman sophistication, right? I mean, his language is much more sophisticated than the language of the Gospels, for instance. And he was an educated, aristocratic person, a bureaucrat, really, whereas Yeshua was a carpenter, and the people he preached to were, peasants, farmers, right? Fishermen. So it's a completely different world. And also, I can't stress enough how first century Judea and, the kind of the region of around Judea, because it wasn't just Judea, where the children of Israel or the Jews at that time were living under Roman occupation, hated and feared the Greco-Roman influence. And they hated and feared it for good reason, the Roman emperors and their kind of representatives were always trying to put statues of Roman emperors, calling them God, in the Holy of Holies. And Jews are not supposed to go along with that. So it was a source of incredible tension. And also, Jews at that time were very nationalistic. They were reading this Torah. The Torah said that God was giving them the land of Israel. And here were these, Roman occupiers, pagans, not following the Torah, not following the commandments, eating and drinking whatever, fornicating with whomever. I mean, this is the Jewish perspective, right? First century perspective. Absolutely tyrannical, crucifying people. Yeshua and the two thieves are not the only people crucified. The hills of Judea, of Jerusalem, were covered with crucified prisoners. This was how the Roman army, and Pilate, who was a representative of Rome, who was kind of the emissary, keeping everyone down under control. That's how they did it, very brutally. That's how they did it to their whole empire around the world. So I just want you to picture that when you read these later, especially the later texts, the Gospels, and then Paul's letters. They're from two completely different worlds that were in some ways antagonistic toward each other. And so that's why, as I say, Paul's genius was in letting the rest of the world find a way in to Judaism, basically, into Yeshua's message, which built on Judaism. I'm not going to say it was or wasn't Jewish. It certainly came out of Judaism. And he specifically was preaching to non-Jews, whereas Jews at that time were not supposed to preach to non-Jews, right? They were just supposed to, follow the Torah, follow the commandments, and kind of be, accountable in this covenant that you're reading about now. All right, let's end with something hopeful. Rick Thrippleton says, a relationship with God is not based on a legal framework. Blood payment is a hard issue like all healthy relationships are based on. Well, I will end there, though I'd really love to end in something a little more unifying, because I don't see what we're reading about here as blood payment. That's not what God is saying. The sacrifice, like everyone was sacrificing animals to gods at that time, it's not a blood payment, it's a greeting. This is not like a savage God demanding, butchery or atonement or bribery or, appeasement. It is a very different relationship. And if I haven't communicated that yet, I'm not doing a great job, but it's in the text. So I refer you to the text. And let's end with B. Joyce saying, when God said in Genesis, let us make man in our image, Genesis 1:26, he was talking about Father, the Word. John 1:1, Word is Jesus, and Holy Spirit, the Comforter, who's now with us. Okay, well, that is a Christian view. I'm bringing you a text that came many millennia before the birth of Yeshua, but I think there's lots to think about. And you can certainly, as I keep saying, see the layers and layers and layers of Jesus's message building on the Hebrew Bible, and the Hebrew Bible bringing ideas that had never been brought to a community of people into the human race, and I think that's for the good. So we've been talking for quite a while. I'm going to sign off. This is Loki, who always likes to be part of the action. Please support this project. It takes a lot: production, distribution, social media, research, as well as all the other things I'm doing that demand my time. I'd really like to make time for this, but I do need your support. So please go to dailyclout.io. There's a Give, Send, Go button, or you can go to, it's the best thing of all, is to go to Naomi Wolf Reads the Geneva Bible on Substack and become a paying member, a paying subscriber. But there's no paywall because I want all these to be available for free. And you can also find me on Outspoken, And yeah, any support you give to Daily Clout or to Outspoken is warmly appreciated, and we put every penny to good use. Thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of your Father's Day, everybody. We'll see you. I'll try to see you tomorrow. Let's power through. It just gets better and better. All right, take care. Oh, and have a beautiful, beautiful night. Bye-bye.